This podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
I'm Chuck Norris, and I approve this game.
Between the time when gamers played with miniatures and chainmail and the rise of the Wizards of the Coast, there was an age of advanced role-playing undreamed of. And onto the Skygax, destined to bear the jeweled crown of TSR upon a troubled brow, it was given to teach us all how to roll for initiative.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello, everyone out there in listener land. You're listening to the Roll for Initiative podcast. This is Volume 3, issue number 123. Almost rhymed. Nah. DM Vince, and I am sitting here with DM Matt.
Hello, everyone.
And we have a first-time person on the show from the Dead Game Society. We're going to call him DM Chad because he's DM'd so many games he gets the title.
Hi, guys.
So let's start off. Chad, how are you, and how has Dead Game Society been?
Good. We're doing rather well, actually. We just did Origins about a month or so ago and had a really good time. We enjoyed it. And
are you guys planning to go to Gen Con, I assume, all three of you? Or?
This year, we're not doing Gen Con. Most of us, due to family, life and work, we can really only afford the time and really the money as well, to do one of the big mega cons. And we had never done Origins before, so we thought, let's give that one a shot. And we're really glad we did it. We had a blast. They treated us really well there, and we had a lot of fun in the games that we ran.
Cool. I've never been to Origins, and everyone says it's always like a nice atmosphere and a pleasant experience, so I'm thinking about going there instead of Gen Con one year.
Yeah, it is. It's less crowded, but there's still crowds. So if you like to be around a lot of people, there are a lot of people there. But you don't feel, claustrophobic when you're there.
Yeah, you don't feel the need to have to rush to everything because everything's contained within the convention center, so you don't have to go 3 blocks to a hotel to get to your event.
Oh yeah, that is much nicer too. Because speaking as one who has at Gen Con walked all the way across Indianapolis to get to my room, only to remember that I forgot one of the core books that I needed, or the adventure itself, and had to walk all the way back to the Canterbury. It was nice to be able to just walk right over there without ever actually even going outside.
Yeah, I mean, Columbus Convention Center is a nice little self-contained world. They got a nice little food court. They have a fairly sizable convenience store that has anything you could need and various other shops and whatnot. So you really don't have to see sunlight for days if you stay in one of the connected hotels.
Oh, yeah. And, I don't know if it was just for Origins and maybe they rented out the room, but it looked like in the convention hall, in the downstairs level, there was even a game store.
Oh, yeah. That's just a regular occurrence. That they're there, Origins or not.
Oh, okay. Because it looked like it looked permanent. I mean, it wasn't a stall. It was its own store with a door and everything going into it. I mean, I thought that was rather convenient for gamers.
Right. It's just the Heroes in Games that's their location in the convention center. I always thought it was an odd location, but no, they've been there years, so.
That's really neat. But yeah, we had a great time. I ran the D series and, heavily abridged, modified to a degree because obviously I couldn't have the prior modules that lead up to it. And so I had to change the plots, the goals a little bit so that they weren't, ultimately ending up versus Lolth. But rather I made it more about D1 was more about a lich, Azerbees, I believe is his name. He's actually in the module, but he's more of an encounter. I just made him the focus. In the second one, what was the focus? I can't even remember what I made the focus of the second one. But luckily, 4 out of my 6 players signed up for every one of the events. So I really just let them keep their characters, and they played through all 3. We had a blast.
Well, yeah, when I DM'd a game for you guys in 2011 for Gen Con, all the players kept the characters too. They were like, "Oh, we just keep this as a souvenir." I'm like, "Okay." I didn't think
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, they like that. They get to know their character that way.
True. I was just thinking, since there are some people out here who are unfamiliar with Dead Game Society, why don't you just kind of give them a little chatter about it?
Oh, sure. The Dead Game Society is a club that my co-founders, Michael and Colin, who've been on your show before, we just decided after Gen Con several years back, we weren't seeing all the games that we expected to see when we went there. Primarily, we were seeing a lot of the new stuff. And so on the way home, we decided that, let's form a club and let's run those games ourselves. So what we're all about really is running and promoting games and game editions that are no longer supported. So even though Dungeons and Dragons is technically still out there right now, we tend to run the editions that are not really supported anymore, like first and second edition, but other games as well.
I remember, what was it, about a couple of years ago, or actually, when did they dropped 4th edition? Michael's like, he said a public statement, he's like, so now we can start playing 4th edition since it's considered a dead game? I was like, yeah, I guess so, Mike.
Well, technically, yeah, you can. I have I'm not really into the whole, edition wars. I figure if you enjoy a game, then, by all means play it. It's not my cup of tea that those particular editions really, after second edition, my interest kind of dropped. But I know that there is a large crowd out there that follows it. Pathfinder is a perfect example of that love.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you actually, when we first found you a couple of years ago, you inducted Jason and I into your brotherhood, and
yes, indeed,
tied us up and put us through the whole. Oh, wait, I shouldn't say that out loud. Sorry.
We promised to never speak of that.
I know. We have to do it to. Oh, never mind. Matt's listening.
Thankfully, you guys won't be at Gen Con this year, so I don't have to look over my shoulder constantly.
Oh,
told you.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, yeah, so I thank you also for allowing me to try to gather up some people to do some Texas Dead Game Society so we can promote things at the conventions for you guys as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We have always been about promoting people in different areas of the world to carry it on, the tradition of pulling the old games off the shelves and checking them out, giving them a second look. For a lot of people, it's a great trip down nostalgia, and for other people, younger players perhaps, it's a great intro into a game they've never played.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, they're new players and they're finding out about a game from 20 years ago and like, wow, this game is really cool. I have to buy it now.
Yeah, and with the older editions, even when the game itself is still supported, they can see where the current game came from. They can make their own comparisons, and they can really see how the game evolved. With other games, such as Boot Hill, for instance, or Top Secret, they're really discovering kind of a new game at that point.
Yeah, I just happened to get my hands on Boot Hill 2nd Edition, courtesy of Cinnabar from our forums. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is really cool. I've never actually seen the actual Boot Hill game other than just glance readings, but this is actually kind of a cool system. So,
oh yeah, check out the 3rd edition too. It's actually really good. I liked it. I was surprised it got such a limited run. It's really good.
I was also surprised about Top Secret not going any further than the SI series, unless there's something I'm not knowing.
No, to my knowledge, it stopped after SI. There are a few other spy games out there, too. The James Bond 007 game is one. Chaosium has put out some really good material for their basic roleplay dealing with Cold War type style play. I think it's Berlin back in it's like Berlin in the 50s. It's really, really cool. I'm a big Cold War buff, and when I run Top Secret, I tend to center mine around the Cold War, and I don't really do so much the James Bondy, Ian Fleming as I do the John le Carre, more kind of gritty Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, that sort of thing.
I remember one game from Gen Con when I went with you guys, and you guys were doing a rescue President Reagan mission. I can't remember exactly what the details were, but you had to save Reagan from a ship and everything like that. Do you remember that adventure?
Who was running that one? I don't think I was doing that one.
I think it was Michael that ran that one.
It could have been. That sounds a little bit like one of Michael's games. His games, by the way, if you ever get a chance to be in one of them, they're a hoot. They did Gilligan's Island one at Gary Con, and it was. The people were just having a blast. They all had the little, flower lays on, and it looked really fun. And then he also did one for Cthulhu based on the Love Boat.
Didn't you guys also do one involving Kiss one year for Gen Con?
He does that. Kissastrophe for Marvel.
Yes. That's it. Yeah.
TSR's Marvel superheroes. He does Kissastrophe because even though you got to save the world, you still got to party all day and rock and roll all night.
Absolutely.
The way around.
Something like that.
Yeah, he dresses up in the entire Gene Simmons battle armor for that. And when he walks through the convention to his game and he's in the entire set, in all of his Gene Simmons destroyer gear, I mean, heads turn.
He definitely is a creative person, especially when he was doing his, I don't know if he's still doing the My 70s room thing that he was doing.
I think that, I'm not really sure if that's still going or not. That would be a good question to bring up to him. I know he loved it. But then there's Colin and me, and we're probably more traditional in the way we run games. Colin runs quite a few games as well. In fact, to my knowledge, Colin's the only one who still runs. If you're a big fan of Buck Rogers, he does the old TSR Buck Rogers, but he does it. He really does credit to that game. He makes the people who have played in it rave about it, and he also does a Xena and Hercules game, which always gets really good reviews.
The D6 WEG edition of it.
Yeah, he's quite a fan of D6 actually, and he's been turning me on to it also.
It's a great little system that's been overlooked.
Yeah, I agree. From the reading I've done, it's a really elegant system. I really like it, and he does a good job with it. We've always had fun when he runs that.
I'm just sad that whenever you bring it up to a lot of people, they're like, D6.
Well, a lot of times it's not the game, it's the runner. You can have a game that has a bad reputation, put somebody behind the screen who knows what they're doing and can weave a good story, and they're going to think it's a great game. You could take a great game and put somebody who doesn't really know how to tell a story, and they're going to walk away and call that game not good.
True.
Yeah, it's a lot about the person that's running it, and it's a lot about the people at the table too. If you get people with open minds, and are ready to roll with it, they're going to have a great time. If you get people who sit down at the table and have already decided they don't like that system, it's not going to be an easy game.
Yeah. I have to tug on his ear and talk about the Xena Hercules game, because I'd love to hear what he's done with it as far as adventures.
Yeah, well, I thought that what was kind of funny at Origins, my little highlight, I guess, I was sitting outside having my orange juice one morning, and Hercules walked by me, Kevin Sorbo, so I waved to him, he waved to me, and that was about as far as that one went.
Good. Did he have?
I didn't say, "Hey, Hercules."
Did he still have his hair short because he's rejecting the long hair Hercules look?
Yeah, I think it was short, come to think of it. Now I don't even remember.
Yeah, he
was probably too busy saying Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you recognized him. I'm sure he was happy. So, Matt, who's being quiet in the background, what have you been doing, Matt?
Well, not a lot of gaming. Just my gaming group had some logistical issues with people being out of town due to the summer, so I got zero gaming with my RPG group. But we're going to be gaming after the show tonight. We're playing Only War. It's a Fantasy Flight Warhammer 40K RPG, so that we're like a squad of basically the 40K equivalent of like Russians, and we're pretty much probably going to get blown up. So I've only been able to play in one session of it due to it's like been our like side game we've decided to turn into a main game. So I think where I am, I went into a abandoned like tank. We're like on like some scouting mission, and I discovered a bunch of rotting corpses that ended up having some evil, horrible parasite or disease or something that I may end up killing us, and that's kind of where we left off. So,
sounds fun.
Yes, it's a percentile-based system, and it's different, but my group likes experimenting with systems, so.
Oh, I like your group.
Yeah,
I like your group already.
Yeah, we've played everything. We've went from, let's see, we're playing this, like it's a percentile-based system. Prior to that, we were playing First Edition, AD&D. Prior to that, I think, what were we playing? I know we did like some Top Secret. We did Marvel Superheroes. We did Robotech. We've done Aces and Eights. We've done Pathfinder. We've done 3.5. We've done Star Wars Revised Core Rules.
Too.
So yeah, we bounce around and we try out everything. One person wants to run a TMNT game.
Oh, I want to play that so badly, right?
That is a fun game.
Yes.
I used to run that back in high school.
Yeah, that was my first exposure to Palladium, and that just got me hooked on like everything else they did. We did Robotech.
I have that one. Did you do the Turtles with the first edition rules with all the wackiness in it?
We haven't. Oh, when I ran it back in like high school, yes. We haven't ran Turtles yet, so that's coming up.
Yeah, the first edition, that's what I had. That's what I ran back
Yeah, the
in
one
high school.
where, they had to remove certain things due to certain political correctness issues. When you start saying certain gender preferences or mental illnesses, apparently that didn't go over too well.
Well, that never happens in role-playing games.
Oh,
No, it doesn't at all.
no, not at all.
And it's worth some major buck if you have the game, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the copy I have is like 10th edition, so...
Well,
I don't even have my copy anymore.
I was lucky. I found a copy of it at the Denton Recycle Books for $2.
Oh, nice.
That's a score.
I was like, oh my God, this is the first edition. I didn't care what printing it was. I just wanted it because it was the first edition of the book.
Yeah.
Very nice. Nice find.
Absolutely. It was one of my best finds at that store, other than the DM's guide with the upside down printed pages.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's the oddball editions that they're kind of neat to have in the collection too.
Right, yeah. Yeah, if you just dig through that stuff, you never know what you may find. Like the one year in the Gen Con auction, I found the president of Ral Partha's Monstrous Compendium for like $2.
Wow.
It was in a box of second edition Monstrous Compendiums, just all thrown together, and some other people I knew actually looked at it and just kind of laughed at the stack, and I'm just like, I never actually got the loose leaf one, so I'm like, I'll buy them. They're $2 each. It was like $10 for the entire box with like 5 binders worth of stuff. It ends up they were Ral Partha's with like notes written on some of the pages.
Oh man, that would be very cool.
Yeah, once I bought it and I saw it had, it said Chuck's property and it had Ral Partha's address in Cincinnati. I'm like, So I took it to the Ral Partha booth and they had one guy that had been with the company like forever, and he verified the handwriting that it was Chuck Crane's. So
cool.
Very cool.
Yes, so dig through the Gen Con auction. You never know what people may sell that they don't realize what they have.
Oh yeah. You can find things all over the place, too. I went to Con on the Cob in Ohio a few years ago, and I think it was Hell on Wheels who was selling it. But in their, what they were selling at the convention, I was able to amass an entire first print of Monster Manual Player's Handbook and DMG.
Oh.
And I think I paid a grand total of like maybe $20 each.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Auctions are good, especially with smaller conventions. People just want to get rid of stuff, and you score things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer game. One of the most rarest books they have is that Magic Box. I don't know if you're familiar with that game. It's called the Magic Box, the Magic System for the game, and I scored it for $1 at Mepicon.
Oh, nice.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a game I haven't played, but I have watched people play it. I watched some people playing the Buffy game at GaryCon maybe 2 years ago, and it looked fun.
Yeah, I have it. I've just never had a chance to play it. I have that and the Angel RPG.
And
I just never got into the whole Buffy craze, which, if I mentioned that on a forum, was instantly sure to get me responses. What?
Yeah, so we're going to just disconnect you now, chat. No.
Sorry.
It's a very fun game. You mix that with Army of Darkness and Angel, you can make yourself one heck of a game. They're all
That's using the same game system that is used for Margaret Weiss's new Marvel game, Marvel Heroic Roleplay. Doesn't it use, what is it? The
Cortex?
That's it, Cortex.
No,
it's different.
The system is for
okay.
Buffy.
Yeah. Because Eden Studios is the one that did the Buffy game. Cortex is a Margaret Weiss thing. The new Marvel game that they actually no longer make, because they got rid of the license earlier. Yeah, they got rid of the license earlier this year, so they had the license for like a year.
That's a dead game.
Yeah, it's already
I can
dead
run
game.
it.
Yeah. The big license Margaret Weiss has now is the Serenity Firefly.
Well, yeah, because they don't have to pay a lot of money for it, so that's why they picked it up.
Yeah.
Their problem is they pick up these licenses with all this money, and they try to sell all these things, and they can't sell as much as they want, so they drop the license all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, they cycle through their license, because they had Smallville at one point, they had Leverage, they had Supernatural. Basically, if it was on WB, they seem to like to get it.
and then they drop it when the fans start to like it.
Yeah, one of those people.
That's a great game. Really? Thanks.
Kill it.
We don't sell it anymore.
They did a lot of. I'm one of the disgruntled Cortex fans because they did a lot of announcing of products and then just went right in the middle of all the product releases. Cited, hey, we're dropping the license. Sorry, guys, these books are not coming out. Here's a new game that we brought out, though. It's like, okay, thanks. Anyway, bye. So anyway, I got to play my game finally this weekend, my 1E game. Continuing along with that, we had some fun. We're going to continue again in 2 weeks for our next game. And then a couple more weeks, and it's going to go on a little bit of a hiatus, and I'll either run something else or just sit back and let someone else run.
Hey, have you guys ever tried, I don't know if anybody here, does anybody read Zelazny's Amber series?
No.
If you ever get a chance, well, if you ever get a chance, you ought to read those. His first series was called The Chronicles of Amber, but it's really, really good. It came out a long time ago, but they made a game off of it. It was the first one that I'd ever played that used the diceless.
Oh, the Jeff Wojcik.
Yeah. Now, it's not in print anymore. I believe they lost the license as well. But it's actually really good. It's kind of a cross between playing a role-playing game and poker. Uses a lot of the same dynamics as poker, I'd say. But yeah, it's a fun one. Anyway, I didn't know if you guys had ever played it, but I was going to definitely suggest it if you ever get a chance. That's one of the games that I'm running right now on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Yeah, you can actually find the Amber on Diceless on DriveThruRPG. So.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, it's there, and if you go to Palladium, like their open house, whenever they actually do it, sometimes they'll have copies of it there, because if you ever go to one of Palladium's open houses, and they have all kinds of interesting stuff they start pulling out. That was like, oh, here's a manuscript for one of our books, and we're auctioning it off.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. When do they have these? I've never...
Typically they were doing them the years they didn't go to Gen Con. I went one year, and basically they get all the writers, they get all their artists, and Kevin Samita, they're all there, and you just game with them for all weekend in their warehouse.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they set up
Very
tables
cool.
in between pallets of books, and it's a good time. And then, yeah, they just start pulling stuff out of, like, the archive and auctioning it off. Oh, this is a rare first printing. Let's auction it off to, like, the 100 people that are actually here.
Oh, my God.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, here's manuscripts, here's original artwork, or just bundles of books. It's really good stuff. It's like they even had book covers for, like, a quarter. Since they do the perfect binding, they have uncut book covers of the stuff. So I bought a bunch of the Robotech ones. They make great artwork to hang.
Very nice.
So
Robotech, did they ever take the new editions they had out, the pocket editions, and make them into larger ones yet?
I think some of the books are. The new one, the most recent book, is a regular full size. And I know they have variants of the core book.
Yeah, I have two of the recent ones they came out with in the last 2 years, but they were pocket size, and they were like, that's all we offer right now. We're thinking about making it full size, but I've been waiting for the full size, because the pocket size, while it's nice, it's kind of small.
Yeah, they wanted to do the manga size. It's the new Genesis is actually full size, like all the other Palladium books.
Well, then I must pick that up.
And then there's like a hardback version of the Robotech that's
Really?
full size. Yeah, they have like a hardcover edition, and then there's a gold edition.
A gold edition? I have to look that up.
Yeah, it's
That's better than
$70
silver.
on their store. The hardcover for the Shadow Chronicles, the base book, is $30.95.
Okay.
And then they have the New Generation, which is the full size, and then the Genesis Pits, I think, is full size as well. So it was just the Macross and Masters that they haven't re-released, to the best of my knowledge, outside of the manga size.
Huh, okay. You'll have to send me a link for that later on. I want to see what they look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind either if you want to send me a link.
Because the last one I had that was full size was the one from 87.
Oh, yeah. I actually have every book of that outside of one of the ship books. I'm missing one of those. Otherwise, I'd have, like, the complete set finally.
Yeah, you shouldn't call them that. Never mind. Play on words, folks, is still safe to listen to everywhere. We love you. Well, I really want that gold edition book. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I used to play Robotech a lot when I was a kid, and I love it.
I did some, I read it back in high school again, but I never could find a group at that time that I could play it with, so I never got to play it.
It was such a good game.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say such, but yeah. I don't know. I really want another one. Matt, buy me one.
Yeah, that gold edition's also autographed by like 5-6 people and limited to 500.
So I doubt I'll find one. Dope.
They actually have it in stock right
Really?
now. Yeah, right now, $70.
Anybody who wants to donate to Vincent at Art.
Yeah. How would you like to join my new Kickstarter?
A
Buy me
Kickstarter.
things.
Yes, a Kickstarter to increase the RFI game library.
Yeah. Why don't we? Well, everyone else does that.
Yes.
They started
We'll all share it. I'll just keep it in my house.
Yes. That's
When you
it.
want to know something, email me.
Yes.
support the Dead Game Society Texas edition chapter by emailing me with your donation. Anyway, enough chatter about that. Let's head into some sage advice.
Sage advice.
Sage advice this week, and we have some emails and we have a voicemail, but if you'd like to call in, you call 570-865-4210, who do we have this week, Matt, standing by? Dragons?
I think we actually have some Draconians, because the dragons aren't big enough for our call center. The dragons are too big for our call center.
I was going to say, wow, we have a pretty big call center. They're not big enough.
Yes, we have a massive call center.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it's very wide, low ceilings, though, because normally it's inhabited by kobolds.
Yeah, usually when we go in there, we have to crouch down, so.
Yeah.
They're messy creatures, kobolds.
Yeah.
I know. I'm looking at the bottom of my shoe right now, so
We may need to invest in some slime and pudding to clean things up.
Hey, they're the quicker picker-upper.
Yep.
just send a gelatinous cube in there. So anyway, 570-865-4210. That's our hotline. And you can email us at rfistaff@gmail.com, as always. Some people asked if we have our own personal go-to emails. Just send it to rfistaff@gmail.com, and it'll bounce over to whoever it needs to go to. I don't think our actual emails are even set up anymore. We used to have like Matt at and Vincent at rfipodcast.com, but I don't think they work anymore.
Yeah, it's best just to go through the RFI staff. We all end up seeing them, so nothing gets missed.
So let's head to our first voicemail right here.
Hi guys, this is DM Kojo calling in. Just wanted to comment on your show about keeping track of time. I've had read the forum posts that Nick referred to, and in agreement with you guys on how to handle time. I also thought Tim made a good point that the newer games seem to hand wave a lot of that time stuff. I don't know as much from firsthand experience playing myself, but I know that my players who are came to my game from Pathfinder and 3.5, we're much less used to people, encounters happening during the rest times or even the need to rest. They adjusted to it fine, but it was a bit of a transition for them. So I can see where that might be an issue if you got gamers who are not as familiar with the old school games. But anyways, just wanted to give my 2 cents on time. Keep up the great work. Talk to you later. Bye.
Well, thank you, DM Kojo. Anybody have any comments for DM Kojo? Silence. No.
It was primarily about keeping track of like in character time.
We had it was the last episode or the episode before we were talking about that whole thing. Nick was ranting about time and how to keep track of time and what happens when the characters pause to rest and things like that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the use of random encounters to keep the players actually moving.
I think
Which you really need to do.
Well, yeah. The person's argument was that when the players rest, everything pauses and nothing happens. And that's usually what happens in, I think, later edition games. They don't have that whole, rush. Things might attack. You need to rest. Because I noticed a lot in 4th edition, you have to, when you rest, nothing happens. Unless you
your power bar goes up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry. I had to stick that one in.
Well, I want to say by saying, of course, if you have an old school DM playing, he will throw things at you.
Right.
But if you have just a normal 4E DM, I think he's just going to kind of say, okay, you guys rest. And 10 minutes later, boom.
Yep.
So I see his side to that whole situation, but no, the world does not pause.
No.
Yeah, I actually had to house rule a little bit on the time it takes to relearn spells, because if you read the books, they're really supposed to be getting like a nice 8-10 hour sleep. And in an adventure, I just don't see it happening. Yeah. So I tend to house rule it a little bit. I say, you need the bare minimum of sleep to get your spells back, which I actually cut it down to about 6 hours a night, because otherwise, especially if you're throwing wandering monsters, random encounters at them while they're resting, they're never going to get their spells back.
Right, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, most of the people in my group that are magic users, they have 2 players, and they generally either just rest for 6 hours. I do the same thing you do, Chad. They have to at least get 6 hours to rest before they recover their spells at all.
Mm-hmm.
I usually take like whatever the time is to learn the spell. That's how much rest you need to learn that one spell, and just add it all together. So that way, kind of like how the old SSI games were, where when you had like 5 different spells, they each had so much time that was needed to learn. And say you got interrupted during your rest, like halfway through, you only have half your spells back, as opposed to making it an all or nothing affair.
So go over that one more time, because I'm sorry, I lost you there.
Okay.
So, 5th level spell, for example.
Yeah.
How much time does he need?
I forget off the top of my head how long does it take to actually... Because in the book it actually says, like, doesn't it actually say, like, each spell level takes so many, like, minutes or to learn?
It does, yeah. It does say
there is, and I remember because we had to look that up. I also run an ongoing Dungeons and Dragons kind of a play-by-post game, and this came up, and that's why we ended up having to house rule it a little bit. Right. I know there is a section, I can't remember it offhand, though. So I think it's in the DMG.
Yeah, because usually what I do, whatever that is per level, I just take the total cumulative levels of spells, and that's how much rest is needed off of like a base of like 4 hours. So I'm like, 4 hours is the minimum sleep you need just to be able to start learning your spells. And then I just add that increments on it. Say like a first level spell's 15 minutes. You need 4 hours and 15 minutes. You get your one first level spell back. If you're trying to learn 5 spells, and they're all first level, so that adds another hour and a half to it. So you need 5 hours and 15 minutes.
Right. And here's another thing to think about. If you're if you're going by the book and looking at around 8 hours of sleep to rememorize your spells, that's the sleep portion. You still have to have your character sit down for like an hour at least or so, and they have to read their books, right?
Yeah, right.
So you're really looking at asking the rest of the party if they can hunker down 9 or 10 hours.
Especially for also clerics, too. They have to pray for an hour.
They have to pray.
At least, so.
Yeah.
And then they don't get their spells until they have a rather lengthy dream, interaction with their deity or a servitor.
Now, Matt, would you adjust the learning level for their rememorizing their spells based on their intelligence as well?
I actually don't. I just say that's just a flat, just to get the magical energies replenished. It's a flat rate for everyone. No one has a bigger pipe to the magic of the universe. Not for me, anyway.
I was thinking about that while you were telling me that, but I was thinking someone with a higher intelligence would obviously have a higher IQ, so they might be able to absorb and learn a lot faster.
Or maybe
I agree. Actually, I like that. They can grasp it.
Yeah, maybe they're very like how when you look at a spell book, every wizard spell book's different, and they take different lengths of pages to make the same spell. So yeah, maybe a more intelligent wizard would be able to condense his spells down and make them more efficient. So yeah, actually, I could see doing that, adjusting.
Yeah, I totally. A mage with less intelligence, say they're meeting the bare minimum, would be struggling with the mechanics of it every night.
It would be like, doing math, and I'm me, and Sheldon is, Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory sitting there doing math with me. And then Chad came over and said, here's a book on, I don't know, calculus.
String theory.
Yeah, string theory or calculus. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I'm not that smart. And Sheldon's like, okay, I know how to do this. That's be like how it would be. So good ideas. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, otherwise, well, actually, that's in later editions where elves do not need 8 hours sleep.
Yeah,
they just need to zone out and stare at a wall for 8 hours.
Because otherwise, if they're physiologically, elves would only need 4 hours sleep, but yet it says they need 8 hours to replenish their spells. That's just kind of like, doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think it was 4 hours when they're adventuring, but every once in a while they have to sleep for 8 hours. I don't really play second, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are like, it's not that. They're screaming at their players and
Sorry,
whatever.
It's been a while since I cracked open my 2E books.
I have a couple.
I pretty much just tell the elf players, you don't have to sleep, but you're still in kind of transcendental meditation. So while it may be harder to sneak up on you at night, you're not keeping watch.
Right.
Absolutely. I like that. All right, so we have a couple emails here. Oh, yeah, thank you, DM Kojo, again. Please call in every episode. We got to get a streak going with you. This first email comes from Corey, and he said, I have a current game going on, and I'm bringing in a friend from work who has never played RPGs before. We are starting him off as a basic fighter to get his feet wet, and then allowing him to keep the character or roll up another one. One of the group members suggested we also start him a level higher than normal, second level instead of first, maybe even third level. What do you all think about this idea? Is it good? Is it bad? Why? Who wants to start that one?
Yeah, that's not something I would do, because since he's at a higher level, even though he's inexperienced, just the raw stats will make him more of the focal point of the group. And if he's a new player, I don't know if being the focal point of the group is necessarily a good idea.
I'm going to say it's a good idea, only for the simple fact that if a new player, you want him to get him hooked on the game and like the game. So if he's a little bit more powerful than the rest of the group, that means, like you said, he'll be the focal point, but he'll be also making a lot of decisions to help the group, which will get him the bug going in him. So right. I do like the idea.
Yeah.
I'm not so much for it, only because if I've always said that a new player probably should stick to a fighter, because it's fairly straightforward, it's very simple, and at low levels, fighters can really kick butt. If I would never recommend a new player to start out as a magic user, and really it's most of the time, most people think it's the magic user at low level that's boring to play. And if you want to give the new player a character and you don't want him to walk away and say, then you don't want to give him a magic user. But you don't really want to give him a magic user to begin with if he's a new player, because it's a little tricky to play magic users the correct way. Even at high level, they're going to be casting lightning bolt in a subterranean tunnel and not understand that they're about to bring down the roof. The same with a fireball. I'll throw a fireball, and every other player in the room starts screaming. I would say keep them at the same level, but give them a character class that they can quickly grasp, which I think would be a fighter.
Right.
Maybe a thief.
Yeah, I was just going to say a thief. I had a new person in my group, new to role-playing, who played a magic user in our secondary group, and he went up all over the place, and I think he died once or twice, and he came over to my group, and he's like, I want to try something a little easier and better. I was like, well, why don't you try a thief? You know, you seem like he likes to role play and stuff, so thief would be perfect for him. And he's shined with the thief so far. So, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great class, too.
All right, cool, Corey. Thanks. Next one comes from Wen, W-E-N. Quick question. I want to do a massive battle, like on the scale of hundreds of men attacking the PC's base of operations. Is there a way to do massive attacks without doing a lot of boring rolls that will have players yawning and walking around while waiting for results? I'd really love to involve my players. Wasn't there a battle system for first edition at one point?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, Bloodstone Wars came out with a battle system.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I think that's a lot of rolling and...
Yeah, it makes it more wargamey. So
I don't know. For massive battles, you can do a lot of quick rolls if you really don't want to get into details, like doing percentile rolls.
Yeah.
You could also alter Stratego.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. You could take Stratego rolls if you're talking about massive army battles. Why not? Risk.
Right.
Yeah, risk, yeah.
You know, what we had in one of my games, in my home group, we had a massive battle, but what we did is we broke it down to small scenes of this massive battle. So, like, one character was, like, trying to stop the orcs from storming the wall. So as the orcs are putting up the ladders, he's doing one thing, and another player, like the magic user's up on a tower casting his spells coming down, and it's all, like, small scenes. If you think of, like, Lord of the Rings and the Two Towers, yes, it's a massive battle, but you take little snippets and focus on the individual players in this massive battle, and by how well they do at that micro level, it affects the overall macro level of the battle. So if the players are doing well in their individual scenes, then the battle starts going their way on the grand scale. If one side's failing, the others, some players are failing, other players are succeeding, maybe it's a more even. Or if everyone's just having problems doing in their own little scene, maybe the battle's going against them. And that way you can keep the players involved, and they can still role play and interact and feel like they have an influence in the battle without getting bogged down into these 1,000 knights are doing battle with these 1,000 orcs, and we must now roll 200 d6 to determine the outcome.
200 d6, Matt, really?
Yeah.
I don't have that many d6s unless I break out Monopoly.
I may, actually. I probably at least have 100. Well, if we counted the little mini pirate dice from like the Pirates of the Spanish Main, I probably do have close to 200.
Or the little hero click ones?
Yep.
But you know what, Matt? When you were saying that, I was thinking, and actually I was thinking about the Chronicles of Amber again in the book. There is a massive sea battle, and the main character is pretty much kicking butt, but ultimately they lose. But they go into this whole thing about how even though they're, as they're marched as prisoners of war, everybody's giving them wide berth because everybody remembers how much it took to bring them down. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if the players are doing good, so then the ultimate, like, what about if you want to introduce, they do great, but the army, the battle is still lost. Is there a way to work that in?
You could. My only concern would be the players may think they were railroaded, and the outcome, no matter how well they did, they were still going to lose.
Right. And see, that's what I was wondering about is the players can shine. I'm just wondering, I still think, if they're doing great, well, they're the heroes. They're supposed to be pretty,
right.
They're supposed to shine. But if the ultimate army that they're fighting on wins also, it almost makes it seem like it almost downshadows them because it means, well, everybody was fighting that good. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I guess I would still want to introduce some randomness. I might ask them. Colin did this actually really well at the first GaryCon we went to, which was GaryCon 2. He had to do a big, massive battle. And one of the things that he did first, before the battle even began, he had the characters. We were all involved in the tactics. We had in character, our characters had maps of the terrain out. An army was marching on the castle that we were in. And we were called upon to not only fight in the battle, but also be advisors, military advisors to the way the strategy and tactics were going to work out. So we ended up doing something like what you were saying, Matt, with the individual battle scenes. Right. But the overall battle was also influenced by us because Colin could take a look. He could listen to what our strategies were, and he could say, okay,
right.
I know what the other army's going to do. I'm now going to factor this in.
Yeah. I actually do like that because then the players will feel like even though we individually did well, our tactics weren't good and that's why we failed. As long as the players never feel like this battle we were always going to lose it no matter what we did. I really tried to avoid those situations.
And that's, they're not going to like that.
Right. So as long as, like if you give them some influence in the grand tactics and the battle from the operational level, then at that point, you could say, you as soldiers you succeeded, as generals you failed horribly, and then at that point the players can be like, okay, we're the ones that caused this battle to fail because we failed at the grand scale.
Right. Or you could even, as the GM, you could write down, what tactics, what strategy the opposing army is going to use. What if you write it down so nobody thinks that you just, oh, well, I know what they're going to do now. I'm going to counter it. You could write down what their plans are, kind of put it in the sealed envelope. And then when it's all said and done, you can say, you lost because of this, and you pull out their strategy, and you can say, you guys decided to rush headlong into battle, whereas they were using flanking movements, and they encircled you and caught you in a pincher, and and basically they took out your sides. They cut off your supply line if it's going to be a long term. But you have they can look at it and just say, oh yeah,
right. Oh, we forgot about that. So
exactly.
Right. I like that idea.
That's a good question, though.
Something to chew on. Anybody out there who has any advice, please email us and we'll send it over to Mr. Wen just to see. Anyway, let's go on to our next email. So this one comes from Billy, and he's just curious if any of us have ever used the 1E rules to play a superhero type game like a Marvel or a DC Comics game. No, the only thing that I've ever used from that era would be Villains and Vigilantes or DC Heroes game or TSR's Marvel. I've never actually taken the 1E rules and played a superhero game. Matt, you?
I haven't either. I mean, I can kind of see how you may if you started just taking spells and calling them superpowers and just giving players unfettered access to like a specific spell set. So you can kind of shoehorn it in, but you would just have to like rework the flavor a lot. If you wanted to do like a modern day, unless you did like medieval superheroes.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I totally agree.
I always think that Villains and Vigilantes was always the equivalent to the D&D system of the day. I don't know why, but I always every time I think about it, I think of that game always.
Yeah, I liked Villains and Vigilantes. I played that. I always remember thinking, for such a thin book, there sure is a lot of number crunching, but it was a fun game. And, of course, the game that I tended to stick to was TSR's Marvel Superheroes because it was back at that time, and it was such an elegant, simple system that you could always pop it out and go right into it. I know that D&D, TSR did put crossover rules for Boot Hill and Gamma World. They never did anything for superheroes, but like Matt was saying, you could definitely take spell effects and simply say, don't worry about the memorization rule.
You know what was really cool about the TSR Marvel game? That, like you said, was so elegant, was so nicely put together that you can practically take any one of those cartoons as you were as a kid and make up a game with that system in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it with G.I. Joe, Transformers. You can squash them into the game and it works just well.
Oh, yeah, it was great. And the fact that it used the battle... I forgot what they call it. The graph at the back. Yeah, face rip. Basically, you can. It's like a slide rule. You can shift it back, columns. You can move it forward columns. You can say, well, yeah, he's doing this, but again, going back to the whole, planning affects the outcome. And if you think they're making a great plan, you can give them bonus column shifts. If you think they're really not thinking this out, you can give them penalties on the column shifts. It's just so nice and easy and very intuitive.
Yeah.
There was one power I remember in the Marvel book. I think it might have been the Ultimate Powers. I just wanted to rip my hair out because it was kind of one of those things that no matter what you did and the player just used it, would just screw up every little plan that you had. It was something to do with morphing
elements.
Yeah, like you can morph somebody into whatever you want.
I had 2 players in my game with that power when I ran Marvel.
It was a way to get around it. It was just like, I turned him into a duck. It was like, ugh.
Right, yeah. Because we randomly rolled powers out of the Ultimate Powers book for my game. And 2 players ended up with that power. And it was
I love that book, but you're right. That's a tough one to get around.
It's because there's no opposed roll. So it's just, if they make the roll, they hit it.
And then there goes your NPC. Right.
So because my players, they were morphing specific body parts. Like they loved converting person's feet to air or oxygen. That was like their favorite tactic. They took out Sabretooth that way because he was trying to run at them and poof, he has no feet.
And he fell.
Yeah, and then they locked him up in Rikers Island, at which point, though, I said since he had regeneration, his foot grew back in Rikers Island, they didn't have the proper restraints, and he escaped. So there's ways around it, because the effect isn't necessarily permanent, but depending on what they use it on, especially if they're just removing specific body parts, you could easily kill someone. The way I ended up having to challenge my players was just through making time an issue and having like multiple foes. So yeah, you can take out one at a time, but if there's 5 villains, one of them's trying to grab the hostage and 3 or 4 others are attacking you, what do you do?
You could always impose you could impose limits on it by simply saying Okay, it will do as it reads in the book, but you're going to have a very good knowledge of that creature's anatomy that you want to change it into.
Right.
Or you could say it's extremely draining. So the more minor the change you do, the less draining it is on you.
Yeah, one character actually had that drawback where it actually drained. It cost him health to actually use the power. And then I also required they actually had to be able to see it, what they were targeting. They couldn't they couldn't target someone's internal organs because you can't actually see it. So
exactly,
So at that point, they just went for extremities or eyeballs.
That's a good idea. It's something minor, an eyeball. Cool.
Right, especially when Red Skull's trying to raise Cthulhu and he's reading out of a book. Because that's what happened in my game. Red Skull's like one paragraph away from raising Cthulhu, and they decided to remove his eyeball so he couldn't finish reading the book.
And right at that moment, Red Skull blinked.
Yeah.
Curses!
Yes, curses. Sorry, you can't see his eyeballs. You removed his eyelids instead.
That would cause him enough pain to stop reading, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of interesting. I like that. I liked how your group did that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next email comes from Matthew. Matt, are you emailing our show?
Maybe.
Okay. What are your thoughts on allowing characters to start at higher levels, such as 5, 10, 15, or even 20? Why do a lot of people seem to reject this and rather just start at 1? But then every once in a while you find a group of players who just loves to start at higher levels. Matthew. It's the connection to the character. That's probably the reason why people don't want to start at higher levels.
And
I totally agree.
Yeah. And what I found is, depending on the game system, starting at a higher level can be kind of confusing, especially as you get into more modern, like either 3.5, 4th edition, the Star Wars Saga. If you have all those options at like 10th, 12th level that you didn't grow into, you just get thrown into them, you kind of don't know what to do as a player. You get overwhelmed with the choices, whereas if you started with that character with level 1, it was a progression. As your character learned the skills, you also learned them as well as a player and learned to use them effectively. So especially like in 1st edition with a magic user, throwing someone all the choices of like a 8th or 9th level magic user might be overwhelming if they're not a really experienced player. When you're like, yeah, you have these 20 spells, what do you do? Whereas if you're a 1st level or 2nd level magic user, you have 2 or 3 choices. And then as you grow as your character grows, you're, as a player, growing with your character, and you now know how to use, you're learning as a player every power as they go up, as your character learns them. So I think you have a better understanding of a character you take from level 1 to 10 and how to play them, as opposed if you just started at 10.
Yeah, I have no problem with people. I run games all the time at conventions where we have to, change the levels. But if I had to guess one reason why it can be a pain in the butt you really wouldn't want to do, say, a pickup game at a high level, I don't think, because it's going to take people a long time to make their character.
Unless the DM provides them, of course.
Exactly. But in the case of, say, just a pickup game, hey, let's do this, then odds are low that the DM's going to be carrying around such characters. So if it's something planned and the DM has already created pre-gens, or your group happens to have characters at level, which I guess would mean that you're not really starting at that level. But otherwise, you're really going to need to sit down and put the higher the level you are, like Matt was saying, the more magic users have more spells. Fighters need to pick out more specialties if you're allowing specialization. There's just a lot more that goes into it when you create on the fly a high level character.
Yeah, all your followers and henchmen and everything that goes with that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, if you're going to start, if they have land, and they probably do at a high level, obviously a lot of people just skip that part, but I mean, that's something to think about too.
Definitely. Okay, so there you go. Last email comes in from Jeff, and he says, Matt and Vince, you guys seem to wrestle talk a lot on the show, and that is cool. My question to you is, have you ever played the old WWF RPG? If so, what are your experiences that you've had with it? I recently found it in a flea market comic book sale bin for $2. Jeff. I've never played it. I have it. So, I don't know. Matt, you said you've dealt once?
I've played it a lot. I actually have 2 copies of the book. I used to play it a ton in high school. I made a majority of like the WWF, WCW, and ECW guys from like the mid-90s.
That's awesome.
In character sheets. I mean, I was running my own feds with it, actually just solo. What I would do is I would just take the 2 guys, I would make the own angles, the storylines in my head, and do the matches. And the game system itself is just very tactical. Positioning. It's like you have your 2 characters will start off like standing. Whoever's the more popular of the 2 has the equivalent of initiative and picks their move. And then, depending on whether they hit their move or didn't, determines the new positions they're at. Then you have your chart where you can pick your moves from that position. So it's very tactical. And if that's not your thing, you probably won't be that enjoyable.
Average match take?
It just depends on if you are I would say the average match, I mean, I could burn through a match in 5-10 minutes. You can kind of use like real time for your matches. For like the actual equivalent match length in game. I mean, I've had matches, like I made I had Arn Anderson and Ric Flair take on the Steiner brothers. I had that match went 2 moves.
Was this before Scott Steiner became so big that he couldn't do the Frankensteiner anymore?
Yeah, this was like 1994 Scott Steiner.
Oh, the good one. Okay.
Yeah, not Big Papa Pump.
The one
so to be the best, did they have to beat the best?
Absolutely. That is how you gain. Woo! Yeah, because actually the way the system was set up, you gain popularity by, 1, playing to the crowd during your matches. Like after you hit a move, it does so much damage. That damage you then turn into points to reposition yourself and your opponent. Say you knocked your opponent down. You can then spend points to pick them up. You can then spend more points to whip them into the ropes and then whip yourself into the ropes. So you can do like a running clothesline. And,
that sounds fun.
And then like if you're running, it adds like a D6 to damage. If you come off the top rope, it adds like 3d6 to the move you do. And it's
very cool.
So yeah,
I just want to play the Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah. I actually never made the Honky Tonk Man. I never went back into I really made mostly like the mid-90s guys. Never actually went back and did the 80s.
How could you not create the greatest intercontinental champion of all times?
I don't know.
That's right. And you get to hit people with the guitar.
Yeah. So I even made like New Japan guys. I made like Jushin Thunder Liger.
Did you at least make the greatest tag team in the world, the Money Incorporated?
IRS actually came with the game. And I'm pretty sure I made Ted DiBiase. And I think I also made Virgil too.
Did you make every match that Money Incorporated had? They all just ran out of the ring and never completed a match for about a year and held the titles?
No, didn't quite do that.
That's what they did in real life.
Yeah.
Did you ever have Hulk Hogan come to the aid of the Macho Man?
Uh-oh.
No, I did make.
That's a golden moment.
Yes, yes. I did make Elizabeth. Macho Man also came with the game.
Nice. What about Disco Inferno?
I think I actually do have Disco Inferno. I actually have a folder with all these characters. I had like 90 wrestlers in all. I ended up making for this game is how much I played it back in my teenage years.
So when you played it as a teenager with your friends, I assume, right?
Actually, I played some with my friends, mostly by myself. I played it solo.
Because that's cool. I'm going to do that too. But I'm just wondering, when you play with your friends, how long did an average game take to play?
It depends on how long they want to like mull over the moves they do. If they
Is it really boring? Like the players start yawning, or
no? We were actually amused because it's like you pick your move. I then pick like the move I'm trying to counter with, and then we roll our dice, and then you just keep doing that. Now, if you had like a group of 6 players, that could get boring for those that weren't involved in the match. When I played it, there was 3 people, myself and 2 others, and the third person, like 2 people would be in the match. The third person would play the referee. So you could actually...
What if you had a third or fourth person play other wrestlers that then got into the fight?
You could do that too. What we did is we actually made our own like stables. We would each have 2 or 3 wrestlers and a referee, and then like work all of our storylines. So we could then say, oh, my other guy now comes out to aid this wrestler.
So you can have like the NWO, all 200 people running out to help somebody.
Right. We each kind of had our own factions.
Right, and you could do tag team matches too. Or
right.
Big steel cage match.
Yeah, we would do like Royal Rumbles and all of that. So
Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just had to laugh at that because the NWO at one point was what? Everybody in WCW but Lex Luger.
And actually, at one point he was NWO.
Yeah, I remember that part, but it just made me laugh. Anyway, enough wrestling talk. You know how people hate the wrestling talk.
Oh,
so.
yes. Yeah, a friend of mine, a friend of mine actually got to do the Wolfpack hand sign with Kevin Nash, so that was cool.
Nice. But you know what? Wrestling's fake, so let's get back to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. The problem with wrestling is it doesn't have fairies. I can't say it doesn't have dragons because go out there and look for any match with Dragon
it did have
Dragon.
A dragon in wrestling.
Ricky the Dragon.
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
However, if you find Dragon, he's actually in a full dragon suit. So look up your Dragon matches.
Oh, one more. If you do Marvel TSR's Marvel, you can still have professional wrestling.
Yes.
Because there was a professional wrestling group in the Marvel comics. The Thing actually did it.
Yeah, the Ultimate Class Wrestling.
Yeah. UCW. They all had like super strength and stuff.
Yep.
Very fun. Anyway.
The Ultimate Muscle cartoon. I don't know why.
Hulk Hogan and Friends.
What?
They had a Saturday morning cartoon of Hulk Hogan and Friends.
Yep, Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
That's it.
That was long at one point.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I'd like to find one with table manners.
What, are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
So, table manners this week, we're going to be talking about one big topic here. A lot of people like to do this, throw this in their game every once in a while, or maybe they just want some ideas for using dragons. So I scoured the shelves, and I wanted to pull out something a little bit different, a little bit that just isn't TSR. So I grabbed Rolaids 721, and it's all about dragons. It's an excellent book, and I've had this for a while. And Chad, you said you've had this book as well.
Yeah, I've had it for a while. I've never actually had a chance to use it, though.
It's actually really cool because it not only does it give you, the typical dragons, but it really breaks down how to create your own dragon. And now when I say create your own dragon, it's not just, hey, you pick a color and, here's his name and blah, blah. No, they go into detail, like rolling up the stats and what each stat's going to do, what the stamina. And dragons have egos. And if they get into a battle, you got to roll on their ego chart to see what happens to them based on the battle and what they lose or if they win. And of course, dragons go through different phases as they grow up. They molt. So as when they're a younger dragon, obviously they're not as powerful as if they're going to be a great dragon or a really ancient dragon. And they have different phases listed here for them. And based on that, their breath weapon will be increased. Their hit dice increase. Their armor class goes down. So it's a really, really cool book. And we'll go into a little bit more depth about it. But did anyone take a look at Dragon magazines?
Oh, I did.
What'd you find there?
There's some really neat stuff in there. Some of it I already knew, but just going back over it again, I remembered a lot of things and saw a few new things that I just really liked. For instance, one thing I thought was kind of a cool article was found in, where is that? 1 second here. Yeah, Gregory Wren, back in issue number 50, wrote an article called Self-Defense for Dragons. And it's actually pretty cool because a lot of criticisms I hear about first edition dragons in the Monster Manual is they're just incredibly too weak, which I agree to a large extent. But if you read this article, they talk about, dragons have a lot more going for them upstairs than a lot of other races, and they know how to make the most out of their natural weaponry as well as other things. For instance, their wings, okay? They're not just folded up against their body when they're fighting on the ground. If you ever tried to chase a chicken, which is the example used, you'll notice that a chicken will buffet you with its wings when you're trying to get a hold of it, a goose, something like that. Well, dragons are going to be using those big wings of theirs, and say they may use it in conjunction with their breath weapon. So if you have a red dragon and he blasts one area, now he can't blast to the sides of him unless he's looking that way, in which case he's not hitting whoever's in front of or behind him. But what if he does that and then also starts fanning those flames? Anything that's burning now gets even hotter and starts spreading all around him. Or say a blue dragon starts fanning his wings and whips up a dust storm of abrasive sand and rocks. Or a white dragon does the same thing, except it's throwing very sharp shards of ice all around after it shoots its icy breath weapon. Those are really kind of neat tricks right there. Not to mention the fact that the Monster Manual really typically only gives them the claw bite. But what about those back claws, especially against a giant sized opponent? They're going to be using all four claws for disemboweling, much like if you ever played with a cat. They'll use their back claws and it hurts. These are little things, though, that the dragons can do that will really ramp up their ability to do some damage.
Absolutely. And I have to say, after reading this Dragons book and reading over some of the Dragon magazines, that when I was a kid, I was always like, oh, yeah, the best dragon's the black dragon. Obviously because I like black as a kid. But after reading this and as I've grown older, I've come to appreciate white dragons quite a bit. I just don't know. Maybe it's because of their ability to shoot the ice particles and just this pure white because it just looks beautiful. I don't know, but I've come to appreciate them.
Well, they live in a rugged land. It's, they're in the Arctic, essentially. It's hard to get to where they are. And they're not dumb. A lot of people have this perception of white dragons as, well, they're the dumb dragons. I don't think any dragon is dumb. I think that they may be not as smart, but they're still pretty crafty. And they had an article also in Dragon, one of the later ones. It was really more after second edition it came out, but I love the article. I can't remember what issue it was in, though, now. And it's the ecology of the dragon redone. And it's told in a story format in this inn where these adventurers are talking about how they want to go out, they want to kill a dragon. And they're talking to another couple that's there, and then this old man comes in, and the couple at first is talking, and they're saying, well, are you really sure you want to do that? Because, we've fought dragons, and here's how they do it. And the people said, well, what about white dragons? They can't be that hard. And he's, their lairs are probably just barren, dismal places. And these people are saying, really, actually, even all dragons in their own fashion make beautiful lairs. Even the white dragon. Imagine a cave of ice where the light is scintillating off of all and creating rainbow effects. And it could be very beautiful in its own way. And white dragons can be downright nasty as far as the way that they think. It ends up at the end of the ecology article. Not the group of people who want to kill dragons, but the other three go outside and they find out the couple are actually two silver dragons in human form. And the old man who came in and corrected them a couple of times turns out to be a gold dragon, and surprising even the two silver dragons. It's a fun article, but it's a really good article if you want to read the mindset of dragons as told by dragons. And I thought it was really neat because they also go into even good dragons can be greedy. A lot of people don't think about that also, but yeah, exactly. I think white dragons are very underappreciated.
Okay, is Santa Claus in the background? What the hell is that?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. That's my cat. I wondered what. Yeah, I saw that message. I'm like, what's that?
I heard ching ching. I'm like, is Santa Claus landing? Now we're talking about like snow.
Yeah,
Here
he's
comes
Santa.
Santa Claus.
He's flying in on his white dragon.
Yeah, he heard talk of snow, and in he came.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just looking at, after reading this description, obviously, the white dragons are lawful good, but they don't have to be lawful good. It's
Not the white dragon. Oh, you mean in
roll aids.
Right, okay.
Roll aids, they consider white dragons lawful, and they put lawful/good. So in your campaign, it doesn't have to be lawful/good. It could be anything you want it to be. Remember, it's your world, your rules, so... Right. Just because it's printed in the book doesn't mean it has to happen. You don't like the rule, throw it out. If you want to make your white dragons, I don't know, neutral. You want to make them chaotic evil. Put them as chaotic evil. Doesn't matter. But they list them as, where is that line here? White dragons are known as the storytellers and singers of the dragon clans. So they list them even there as elegant dragons.
Yeah. A far cry from the D&D equivalent.
Yeah, definitely. But then this broke down the dragons from smallest size, which would be the silver dragon, all the way to the largest size dragon, which would be the spectral dragon, which would be like a multi-headed dragon, or maybe something equivalent to look like Tiamat from the old cartoon of D&D. That's what I equalize it to. But and red dragon being the second biggest kind. But in this book, I like how they took the dragons in the Roll-Aids book and broke it down. They each have their own individual clan of dragons, and the dragons all have their own separate type of rules. And they all look at each other a certain way, and they judge each other a certain way. It's not just like, we're all dragons and we love each other.
No. Dragons do not get along necessarily with other dragons.
Dragons are kind of like cats in that way.
Yeah.
They'd rather not have any company.
But they'll tolerate it if it's the right type of company, or if that company can do something for them. It's like in D&D, I find it highly amusing that copper dragons and brass dragons do not get along, simply because the brass dragons try to steal all the thunder of the copper dragons, because they're similar colors.
Yeah. And the clans, battle for, the ultimate power of who's going to be the top dog dragon, who's going to make all the decisions, which I really found interesting. And, of course, they hate all humans, so... That's always
that.
Yeah. They only consider a certain race. What was it?
The Dragon Rider or the
Dragon Lord. Well, you're not supposed to call them Dragon Lords in front of a dragon, but those are they have Dragon Lords, which are the people that would actually function with a dragon, ride a dragon.
Kind of like in Krynn, they have the Dragon High Masters.
Yeah, and those are the only people that get a little bit of respect from the dragons.
They get tolerated. Is the best way to look at it.
Now, one thing that goes beyond is you can take a dragon and use it as a player character. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, this guy on the ground, 2 feet. He's a dragon. He's about maybe 10 feet tall. No, he's an actual dragon.
Right. Yes.
It's not the normal type thing you're thinking. It's an actual dragon.
Yeah, it's as if you're actually playing the monster as a player character. But unlike if you did it using the dragons from D&D, where you just take the stats out of the monster manual and use them, this actually has the rules for actually creating PCs and level advancement and the aging process. So it's very interesting if you actually wanted to, instead of going to slay the dragon and take the loot, you're now the dragon trying to keep your loot.
And then after you do that, you make up your character, you go through all the molting phases, and as your character grows in age, you get to pick whichever little powers, and I'm doing the Dr. Evil quotes in the air, that you want to pick off there. And there's 4 molting phases as your dragon ages. There's a really cool dragon biology article. I shouldn't say article, write-up, of how a dragon is actually his insides. You guys take a look at that at all?
Yeah,
they do. They go over the shape of the skull and that sort of thing.
Where the dragon heart is.
Organs, how big his heart is, and where things are located and how thick the skin is. You could do random rolls if you want to make a custom type dragon, which is kind of cool. Depending on skin, it's pseudo lungs, it's hollow bones, the wingspan, really cool.
Yeah.
You can do evolution and mutations. This is a really good book.
Yeah, you can definitely make some unique dragons with it. Just like some of the mutations, the dragon can astrally project itself, or instead of having a pair of wings, it has 2 pairs of wings, and or like gems for eyes, and so you can just put all kinds of little twists on the dragon. So that way, when a player comes up to it, they will be like, "Wait a minute, this just isn't a typical dragon." So,
you know what I really found interesting was the whole head shaping picture and description. How the dragons will mold when they're molding the baby dragons, they'll kind of reform their skulls to look something different. I just kind of thought that was interesting. How about you?
Oh, I think it's very detailed. It, obviously it brings it back to a more realistic look on fantasy. As children grow, their skulls change. That's why at times they look more like one parent than the other. I mean, it'd be interesting. I like how they've kind of pulled that into dragons.
And there's also, it goes into the realism of what happens to a dragon. Do they have a disease or parasites, things like that? What would happen to a normal animal? Stomach worms, red eye, shell plague. Right. And then we go to an awesome article. I keep saying article like this is a magazine. An awesome write-up, I'll say, of the dragon culture. And they actually give you a whole entire breakdown of a cave of a dragon. And I thought it was really cool. And they even include the little termites and bugs in the cave, too, which would be listed in there. I wonder what they're writing on the walls, though, because the picture has writing next to it.
Yeah, it's like, maybe it's like a warning or something to people that may wander in. We will eat you.
We are watching you.
Yeah, because it's like in the ecology section, it actually went into what the different dragons eat, because not all dragons. Some dragons prefer cow, some prefer sheep. I just found that rather amusing, and this book also has like a setting attached to it as well as most of the Roll Aids books do, and it actually says, there's like millions of animals eaten a year by dragons in this land. So
I think it was cool how they included a air shaft in the cave so the dragon can, burn his fire and the smoke will go out. Yeah. You see that?
Yeah.
He's got his
now, this is interesting, too, because there's a section on dragon clerics.
Mm-hmm.
And, Dragon Magazine covered that also. There's an article you can find also in Dragon Magazine that talks about dragon clerics. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They differ a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of neat. Nobody really ever thinks about dragons, draconic priests. Because they're very self-centered.
Probably. But I do like how they have the breakdown. Like, when most people think about dragons, they think about this large cave, and there's a dragon at the very end sitting on his hoard of gold, and that's his whole lair. They actually break it down as that there's the main cave where the dragon would probably do most of his things in, like whatever, eat, walk around. Yeah. Then he has this little area that he sleeps in. And I guess the other pits are just where he finds food.
Right. He has his little water hole down at the bottom.
Yep, he has his treasure cave where he hides his treasure. He's not actually sleeping on his treasure like we've seen in cartoons.
And there's the little enclaves where it looks like they actually do sleep. So,
yeah, I thought that was cool, the little nesting cave there.
Yeah.
The excavations cave.
Yeah.
You got to include that too.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not, maybe I missed it. I'm not understanding the termite.
Well, the termites are the ones that actually made the cave for the dragons. The dragons and the termite queen, they get along great. So they work together. So because the termite queen can communicate telepathically with the dragons. So the termites, in turn, will make the lairs for the dragons. And at which point, the dragons leave the termites alone.
So they have a nice symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Like to snuggle at night,
Right.
And this is where the picture there when he's greeting the sun at the top, the dragon sitting at the very top of the mountain there, kind of reminds me of a cat sitting in the sun. So there goes back to your cat reference.
Yeah.
I always think dragons, they're actually, at least to me, they seem to be a lot like cats.
Yeah.
Their world tends to center around themselves.
Right. Very true.
And they're very predatory.
Yeah.
And then we have some more information about the dragon clans, going into more detail about them. And then and then we jump into a big magic section about dragons.
Yeah. But a little before that, though, I found interesting the dragon dreams. When a dragon dreams, their dreams become reality.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do a lot with that, too.
Right. Yes, and any damage a dragon sustains in their dreams, it actually happens to them.
Yeah.
So if they could dream they're doing battle with a bunch of dwarves, and any damage they take in that dream is actually real damage they wake up with. And then there's one, they dream of a tornado, so a tornado actually happens, or a storm. It's like if they dream of snow, a snowstorm falls within 1d4 miles of the sleeping dragon. So you could even just have a plot be very random inclement weather falls upon a town that makes no sense for the season. Then the players discover, it's a dragon that's been taking a nap.
Yeah, and this whole dream section, because you can see other dragons dream the future, like you said, really kind of reinforces that whole stereotype. Well, what do we do? Let's go ask the ancient dragon because they know all the answers. Right here gives you the explanation of how the dragon knows just about everything there is to know about important stuff.
Right, and according to this, dragons are they're basically all dragons are demigods.
Right, yeah, they all have part of a god in them, hence why they are so powerful. And actually...
And proud and arrogant.
Yeah, and actually that's kind of ancient Egyptian cats, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
So, they're scaled cats.
Except the Egyptians worshipped them and then killed them.
The second part is the one the dragons might have an issue with.
Right.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you want to what?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Excuse me while I take a deep breath. I'm going to inhale now.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Or excuse me while I nap and a meteor shower falls on you.
And then they talk a little bit about some guards and some pets of dragons and how things. And then they go into talking about the mites.
Yeah.
That Matt was talking about how they work.
Yeah, I'm amused by the sensor dog with the My Favorite Martian antenna.
Well,
Yeah, they speak. The dogs themselves actually speak telepathically. They're kind of like their guard dogs.
Yeah,
it's rather amusing.
The termites. They talk more about the queen termite, and then they go into some really cool plant lore, which would be excellent for doing a book on alchemy for a character.
Oh yeah.
Or a book on healing potions, I should say.
Right, because your typical healing potions aren't going to work on a dragon, so you would use the stuff listed here to have your cure light wounds for a dragon, because they actually have a little pouch, like a marsupial, that they keep it in. They keep their herbs and other plants in for when they need them.
But this could give you a really, this breakdown they give you plants and the effect and what percentage you need to do and blah, blah, blah. But it gives you a really cool idea of what you can write up for your player characters that want to do herbalism.
Oh, totally. And
I said alchemy, sorry.
Yeah, and then it also goes into minerals and stones as well. What to do with some of those gemstones your players find.
Yeah, that's really... I forgot about that, and now I want to include it now because there's some really cool ideas in here.
Right, it's like a cat's eye. You can use it to make rings of invisibility.
Absolutely. Or an ivory milk when worn increases intelligence by 1. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. Ivory faint blue adds 100 years to life.
Wow, imagine getting that for your character.
Yeah, and imagine what happens when you lose it and you've already aged 100 years.
Just the whole scene from The Last Crusade when he accidentally chose unwisely.
You drank from the wrong chalice. You now die.
Yeah. You
chose poorly.
Yes.
Well, I like the part where, have you guys read the part where they talk about dealing with dragons and how dragons are always late?
Yes.
You can almost never count on them to be on time.
Because time doesn't matter to them. When you live thousands of years, really, what's a few minutes?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's exactly. Your perception of time completely changes. So when you're asked to show up on Tuesday and you show up next Monday after that, because according to this, they could be 1 to 4 days late, to you, okay, you were a little late. I mean, that's like being 15 minutes late for us. No big deal. These humans are so whiny.
Yeah, they're just so needy and always in a hurry.
Just so annoying.
They're a rash race.
Yes.
Anyway.
Very interesting, though.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything. I was trying to do some research. There was nothing I found in White Dwarf. Did any of you guys find anything on that?
No.
I didn't read White Dwarf, actually. I was going through my dragon collection.
Yeah, I was just trying to do a search through their database for anything with that, and I couldn't really find anything worthwhile talking about.
Well, have you guys, one topic that I think usually comes up when people are talking about dragons, of course, from a treasure perspective, is dragon scale armor. Did you guys find a lot on that? Because there's a great article on it in Dragon.
I didn't see the article, but I remember reading it a long time ago, and I used quite a bit of ideas for dragon armor, which is really cool. Depending on the color of the dragon you steal the armor from, or pull it off of, or find it when they shed or molt.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's not, you cannot simply kill a dragon and say, well, we carve out the skin and we're ready to make some armor. There's really a lot of caveats to making dragon. It's hard. First of all, you can't use any magic, even a single magical attack directed against a dragon. And this came out of Dragon Armor, issue number 62 by Roger E. Moore. Even a single magical attack directed against a dragon, whether or not the spell casting succeeds and whether or not the spell causes damage to the dragon, will ruin the protective potential of the dragon of the creature's hide and make later attempts at enchantment ineffective. So you have to kill it without using any magic, which can be a real hard thing to do when you're going up against a powerful dragon. And it can't be a young dragon. It's got to be at least adult in age. And if you're using edged weapons to kill it, you're suddenly getting into percentile chances that are cumulative that you're going to ruin the hide anyway. So, yeah. And then, of course, once you do actually succeed somehow in killing the dragon without using magic or edged weapons to any large extent, now you actually have to make the armor, which, by the way, a full dragon only makes one suit of scale mail equivalent armor. And once you have made that armor, which is essentially armor class 6, it's a little bit lighter than regular scale mail, but you have to find master craftsmen who will prepare it at 3 times the cost of normal armor crafting. And then you have to find a magic user who will put the spells on it that you need to have, because you have to do an enchant item on it. And then you have to have a catalyst to bring out the skin's protective qualities, which in the case of a white dragon, they have to cast Ice Storm on it. For a black dragon, it's not really a spell. They have to immerse it in acid for up to 24 hours. Green dragon, Stinking Cloud must be cast on it. Blue dragon, you have to cast Shocking Grass. Red dragon, you have to cast Burning Hands. And then, of course, once all this is done, and by the way, if any of the spells for whatever reason failed, the magic user is under no obligation to give you your money back or try a second time. That's up to him. But you end up with some neat armor. Like white dragon armor gives you resistance against white dragon breath, winter wolf breath, cone of cold spell, any attack basically involving cold, ice, or frost. If you black dragon armor protects you from giant slug spittle or Ankeg digestive acid. They're just great stuff. Of course, I would not recommend wearing that armor if you meet a dragon, because it'll probably put them in a frenzy.
Yeah, they would probably be annoyed that you're wearing the armor of one of their brethren.
Yeah, and I don't even think, I mean, at least as I would run it, I don't even think you could wear evil, chromatic, one of the colored dragon skins in front of a good dragon. I have a feeling they would not be, they would probably take affront to it also. It'd be like,
I think so.
Look, I got a scalp to somebody's good. They're not going to be happy about it.
Right.
Skin the skin off some person and putting it on your own to be, like the, horror movies or something. It's just horrifying and disgusting.
Right.
Oh yeah, they'd probably be like, "That's barbaric."
Yeah, and if
I'm gonna squash you.
Yeah, and if it's like a black dragon and a good dragon sees it, they might think you're some worshiper of them, of a black.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So at that
totally.
point, at that point, it just we must kill you even quicker.
Yeah, exactly. There's one less barbaric person in the world. Yeah. But yeah, I just remember when I was coming up in Dungeons and Dragons back in the 80s and early 90s, that was always something that people, whenever they go up against a dragon, or really one of the reasons why they wanted to go up against a dragon was they wanted its skin. And I think in the past we always did it. Our DM was probably way too lenient with us on this because he didn't really make us go through all the hoops that are involved in it. But I think really to truly appreciate it, I would definitely make them go through all the hoops.
Yeah, because otherwise, why wouldn't there be like 5 million different suits of dragon scale armor running around in the game world?
Exactly. And they also in the article that Gregory Wren's article on self-defense for dragons covers also a very interesting fact. They say of all the monsters that are out there, dragons are oftentimes they're the one that people want to fight for some reason. You don't, because the payoff is they are the best payoff. If you compare damage to what you're going to get, you want to go with a dragon every time, because there are a lot of monsters out there that can do similar. Well, not a lot, but there are monsters out there that can do similar amounts of damage. Devils, demons, but wraiths do life draining, but dragons don't do that. But none of those are going to give you the ultimate payoff in terms of treasure that a dragon does.
Right. Yeah, just from like a risk reward, it's a pretty good balance there, because if you slay this massive monster, one, you get all the fame and you get a nice little trophy from like, ooh, look at this.
Exactly.
And then
who doesn't want to be George the Dragon Slayer?
Exactly. And then they have all this stuff, and since they live so long, you never know what really old, super powerful artifact they could happen to have in their treasure trove, because they are hoarders.
They're very much hoarders, and even the good dragons are hoarders. Their hoard is their social status.
It would be interesting, though, if you made a dragon that was a hoarder, but he hoarded junk. His hoard was nothing but trash and junk.
Interestingly enough, in another one of the articles I was reading, which was not that one. Anyway, they talk about in one of the Dragon magazine issues the fact that not every dragon you come across when you hit their hoard is going to have the fabulous riches of a lost empire most of the time, because there are two ways dragons can accumulate their hoard. They can go out and do it the Smaug way, which is to, pure force and take it over, kill whatever owned the treasure before. But hauling back that much can be tiresome, and they like to sleep a lot. The easier way for a dragon to accumulate its hoard is by tribute. They panic the local natives, and because of this, the treasure's brought to them. They promise to be more sparing on their rampages, but that means the treasure that you're going to find in them, in their hoard, is also going to be more reminiscent of the indigenous population. So if you're talking about kobolds, you're going to find kobold treasure in their hoard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see him torturing a kingdom also, in a high-class kingdom. A dragon gets lucky, and then every month the king has to drop off a certain amount of riches from his land, and that's where the big hordes will start coming in.
Exactly. And, dragons, they can be also awful lazy. Yeah. So if there's an easier way to get the loot to their hoard, they're going to take it.
Yeah.
Just like when adventurers go to ask the dragon for advice, he says, I'll help you out if you go fetch this for me.
Right.
So
exactly. That's a third way they can get it. You want something from them, they want you to do something for them.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Dragon's not going to freely give you information. Sorry.
Right. Knowledge is power. Everything costs.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting because they talk about in Dragon Deities by Ed Greenwood. That was Dragons and Their Deities, issue number 86 by Alan Zumwalt. He talks quite a bit about the fact that Tiamat and Bahamut, they actually almost agree on what they see as the weakness of their race, and that is their greed. Because even good dragons can be, to a large extent, greedy. They're good. They're not trying to, they fight for what is good in the world, but at the same time, they still love their gold or whatever their treasure of choice is. And because of this, they say if there was a one-on-one fight between Tiamat and Bahamut, Bahamut would probably win. But if it became about all the good dragons against all the evil dragons, and Tiamat was able to use bribery, it might be a whole nother outcome.
Yeah.
I thought that was actually rather interesting. So next time your party goes to a silver dragon, wanting information on how to defeat something, or perhaps they find out that the silver dragon has an item in its hoard that could help in defeating evil, make them work for it, because the silver dragon may say, you're right, we do need to get rid of this evil, but I really don't want to get rid of that.
Right. Yeah, dragons are a great way to, if your players have too much gold or a little too powerful of magic items, to take those out of the equation, because the dragon would love to have that stuff. So,
oh, of course, and let the dragons use what they have too. If you go up against a dragon and he's got a staff of power in his hoard, and he knows what it is, and he's a smart dragon. If he's a smart dragon, he probably will, especially a magic using dragon. Then to him, that's a wand.
Right.
He may just pick that right up.
Yeah.
Very true. It's not like you're going to have Scooby Dum as one of your dragons. Well, you could, I guess. But
you could. I mean, yeah, white dragons aren't the brightest of all of them, even though but they are still crafty as all get out. But they may not be the ones to use the magic item. But if there's something that at their disposal that they understand they can use, and it comes down to their life, they will. I don't think they would use it as a first option because that's part of their treasure and they don't want to waste it. But if it comes down to it and they realize that their own abilities are not up to the task, I think very much so, they would take something out of their hoard that could save their own life.
Right. Yeah, I could even see the white dragon taking their hoard and encasing it in a giant block of ice. So yeah, you defeat the dragon. You still have to tunnel through this giant thing of ice.
Now you have a glacier.
Yes.
We're getting it.
You could see through this glacier a lot of shiny gold. Get your chisels.
Yeah, and that brings up also another point, is how do dragons guard their hoard? And you bring up a very good example. One very simple method that would appeal to a white dragon would simply be to encase it in one big block of ice.
Right. Or maybe another dragon will have his little spittoon in front of it, which would be a giant ravine to a person. with all of his caustic acid breath, where he just
totally.
Yeah, so now you have the logistics of getting across an acid pit, 20,000 gold.
Not to mention the fact that a lot of people. I actually ran an encounter not too long ago in the game that I run currently, and it's actually in the Nine Hells. It was in Avernus. But they had to go up against it's a higher level adventure, but they had to go up against an ancient red dragon that was one of the consorts of Tiamat. And I made them really work for it because I've always said that dragons should be almost a penultimate experience. It's part of the name of the game.
Absolutely.
I don't like running dragons as an encounter. They're too smart, they're too powerful, and they're too cool for that. They need to be the guy at the end of the adventure you got to go up against. And they're going to have all sorts of things that can give the players problems. Traps, dead-end tunnels, spells. I don't see enough people, in my opinion, that take advantage of an intelligent spellcasting capable dragon's ability to cast spells. I think they would be very sharp spellcasters. They were supposedly using magic before the elves were, so it makes sense. But they're going to have all sorts of servitors, minions working for them. So they're a great big bad guy, I think.
Yeah, and I also agree with you as they're not being used just in the counter. I think they should be a reoccurring person in the campaign. That'd be a better way to use them instead of just once and done.
And they make great recurring villains. In the game that I was in back in college, we had a red dragon female named Flame, and she, not the most original name, but she basically she hounded our characters in every adventure we did, and we were always running from her, so she was always finding us, essentially. And we did Ravensloft, and at the end of the adventure, my character had basically claimed Castle Ravensloft as his own. And he was like, yay! And Flame showed up. And I literally freaked out. I was like, no, she's going to destroy my castle. Luckily, we had a deck of many things, which is actually how I got the castle, because I drew the card that gives you a castle. And the DM said, all right, fine, Castle Ravensloft is yours. Then Flame showed up. I freaked out. And one of the other characters had the card that lets you avoid a situation. So we avoided the situation. Wow. But yeah, we had essentially made armor out of her children's skins. And she chased us ever after that. But it made a great recurring character. So yeah, you're right. They make wonderful recurring characters.
My one question to you was, since you got Castle Ravenloft, what happened to the previous owner? Did he say, yes, I'm out of here? Or
well, at the end of the event, this is the original adventure, and we had freed Strahd from his tortured punishment, his tortured existence.
I was going to say
it was fun.
He ran off into the sunset with Tatiana skipping.
Oh, if he ran off into the sunset, it was a very maybe that's how he ended his tortured existence. Yeah, no, it ended the way it was supposed to, and that's I think you guys have even done a show on that, but that's a whole nother topic. But it's fun to talk about.
Castle Ravenloft.
Vampires are another creature I think that aren't given the respect or used often by GMs the way I think they should be used. But they're really cool too.
Yeah, different episode, different time, another Sunday. So I think that should end the episode this week on that high note. We'll do a George Costanza and walk out the room backwards. Anyone get the reference? Never mind. And
Costanza.
George Costanza.
Ooh.
Anyway, I hope that sparks some interest in your campaigns out there. Maybe you got some ideas running in your head right now going, ooh, this is going to be good for my game. Or I really like what these guys talked about. Or, oh, my God, I'm going to write it and tell how much I hated that episode. Go ahead and do it. We'll read it. And I'll just say keep it original, keep it old school, and good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
The Roll for Initiative podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. You can visit us at rfipodcast.com or contact us on our forums at osrgaming.org or even by calling us at 570-865-4210. This podcast is produced for entertainment purposes only. All other uses are prohibited. And remember, if your magic missile spell doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.